All right, everyone, welcome to our session on visualizing your work in Action Builder. My name is Seth. We're going to get started here shortly. Thanks for being patient as we get everyone into the room. You can see that Jeff has shared the link to SQL Mirror training. If you're trying to join that training, go ahead and click on that link. If you are trying to join visualizing your, I'm saying it like I'm British, but visualizing your work in Action Builder, you're in the right spot. Okay, for the sake of time here, I see folks are still filtering in. We're gonna go ahead and get into the agenda. My name is Seth, pronouns he, him. I am a partner success specialist with Action Network and Action Builder. I've been with Action Builder since we launched, so I always forget that count 2020, but closing in on almost 3 years at this point, I think. And I do have a background in training. I also head up the training here for Action Network and Action Builder as well. So happy that you're able to join us here for Build Power 2021 and that you've decided to join this session. Okay, so for today, we are going to do introductions. I've kind of done that already, so we're starting off good. And then we'll talk a bit about CHOP and our guest from CHOP, which stands for Cleveland Housing Organizing Project. I'm actually based out of Cleveland, Ohio. So we're going to get to hear some good information, insight from this program that's here in Ohio that's doing some really important work. Then we'll talk about the Action Builder core features as it relates to the ability for you to visualize your data and kind of what does that mean as it relates to strategy and being able to make good decisions on your program and for your program and campaigns. Then we'll just kind of do a walkthrough in the tool and we'll kind of go over how you're able to use Action Builder to look at various ways to visualize the data. And then we'll go into an open discussion. So hopefully that sounds good to everyone. So let's go ahead and get into it. First, I would like to introduce our guest, as I mentioned, Abby with CHOP. We're going to take a few moments here to just kind of talk a bit about how Action Builder was used in their work. And then again, I'll talk about more of the core features and we'll do a live demo of how that looks in Action Builder. So Abby, if you wanted to do an introduction of yourself, how you came to use Action Builder for your work with CHOP, but let's just start there and we can kind of have a free-flowing conversation.
That sounds great, Seth. Thank you so much for having me. Really nice to be here as part of this incredible program here. So as Seth mentioned, CHOP stands for the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project. We are a Cleveland-based housing justice campaign that's focused on building long-term transformative tenant power here in the city of Cleveland. And we started out as a campaign that was working to introduce a lead-safe ordinance to hold property owners and like landlords and other housing providers accountable to maintaining lead-safe housing for Cleveland tenants. And then we quickly expanded from there and started working on evictions canvassing, which is a huge component of what we do. And it's really our entry point, not only for our organizers to get used to having conversations with tenants, to building power with their neighbors, but also just ensures like the mutual aid work of educating folks on getting them connected to right to counsel programs, connected to legal representation to try to stand up and fight against their evictions. Because we know that most tenants are represented less than 5% of the time in housing court, whereas landlords are represented over 90% of the time in eviction proceedings. And so we are just out trying to educate tenants on that. And it's a huge data lift, really, doing these kinds of evictions. every other week, every other Saturday, we meet in the parking lot of the Northeastern Coalition for the Homeless of NEOC. And we distribute walking turf for our organizers to walk, knock on the doors of our neighbors, and let them know that there has been an eviction filed against them and what their rights are, how they can get in touch with free and reduced cost legal assistance, how they can get access to rental assistance, utilities assistance, just a wide variety of assistance, in addition to connecting with us, the Democratic Socialists of America, the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project, to start, like I said, building long-term transformative tenant power, so that tenants are able to collectively bargain for their right to continue to reside in their home and have safe and dignified housing. And in order to do that, we have to keep track of who we talk to. We have to manage all of the addresses we have to knock. Hundreds of eviction cases. Obviously, during the pandemic, we saw a huge influx in the number of cases being filed, the number of tenants we had to reach. And we started doing all of this data tracking when I first started with CHOP last September, moved to Cleveland from Denver and started working with them and organizing with them. We were doing all of that data tracking in Google Sheets. And it was such a nightmare doing these bulk uploads, trying to like find one single error in one cell in this massive Google Sheet of all of these eviction cases throughout the entire city of Cleveland. And so for us, Action Builder has been a transformative tool where we've been able to migrate all of that data from Google Sheets into this centralized location, where we've been able to use the tool in a pretty creative and innovative way, where we actually do a lot of external organizing as well. I know a lot of union organizers use the tool for internal organizing, which we do as the Democratic Socialists of America. We use Action Builder to manage our internal organizing for sure. But we've also been using it to organize folks who we just get their information from the public eviction database. And so we do a huge bulk upload every other week of all of these eviction cases. And we cut our turf in Action Builder. We assign the tasks for the walk list in Action Builder. And we keep track of doing at least two calls to tenants, a pre-hearing call that follows their initial door knock, where we call every single tenant that we spoke with, whose phone numbers we got on the doors, to do a follow-up to make sure that they're prepared for their eviction hearing and they have access to the resources that they need. And then we do a second post-hearing call to find out how things went and to follow up about further ways that they can get involved with the Democratic Socialists of America and with our broader tenant power building movement. And so that's really how we've used Action Builder to manage all of those eviction cases, to distribute the turf, and to follow up with tenants. And it's been just a great tool, not only for just maintaining our data in a much more intuitive way than we were in Google Sheets, but also in preparing us as organizers to continue doing this work with labor unions, with all of the other folks who are using Action Builder and are part of this coalition. And so that's kind of how the Cleveland Housing Organizing Project has been utilizing the tool.
I did the fatal error of being on mute, and then I had such a joyful response, because we're in a shared space, although we are virtual. It just warms my heart to hear of the work that you're doing, Abby, and just being so close with Action Builder. Obviously, I work with the organization that brings Action Builder to organizers like you. It's just kind of like the perfect this combination of things coming together. I'd love if you would, and I promise folks we'll jump into the more visual aspect post this discussion, but Abby, I'd love just more comments on maybe the process. And it was just so creative how you're using, or how CHOP has been able to use Action Builder to do this work around evictions in doing the walk list. But what was the process of moving from Google Sheets to an Action Builder and visualizing those addresses with the map feature on Action Builder? Can you talk a bit about that and kind of folks' response to having that capability and how that might have been?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, before I dive into the kind of the specifics of how it looked, I want to say that if anyone is interested in learning like more details about just the step-by-step of how you do something similar in your own city, or if you know a group that's trying to do this kind of organizing, since we're democratic socialists, we want to share this knowledge with as many folks as possible. We have step-by-step walkthrough videos of how to upload this data, how to cut turf. They're just really intuitive, short little 10-minute videos that can help people. Like, I don't consider myself a data person at all. I never was doing this kind of work with Action Builder before this experience of organizing and building power with CHOP. And so if anyone's interested in that, we can definitely get connected after the panel and I can share all of that information with you. But the nitty gritty of how it worked was we had to, we work with an individual person at the Cleveland courts to get the public record of eviction hearings that had been filed for the past 2 weeks. And then we use a parser to just kind of pull the raw data into a CSV for us from that bigger, like much more difficult to work with bureaucratic nightmare of an evictions list. And one of our members, who's a little bit more code savvy than I am, was able to design a parser for us to be able to do that, to extract a CSV. And then we just download that CSV, upload it to Action Builder, and we match the CSV just like you all do when you use Action Builder with those specific form fields to make sure that we pull things like the court date, the time, the location, the names of the tenants if they're available, the address, like upstairs, downstairs unit. We have fields for all of that information. And then we just designed a query to then pull, once those cases are uploaded to Action Builder, we just designed a query to pull the specific court dates for that 2-week period that we're looking for. And then we extract those cases that we're specifically going to be working on for that canvas. And then we just migrate it directly into the tasks tab from that query. And that's how we use the map feature to cut the turf from there, where there's like a huge map of the city of Cleveland. And you know, Cleveland is, I believe, the 4th most segregated city in the US, actually. So these eviction hearings are concentrated in very specific neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland that reflect the districts that were redlined, you know, decades ago as well. And that segregation is still ongoing. So we focus on those same neighborhoods when we do eviction canvassing. And yeah, we just cut the turf from there. You just make little boxes around, we do 5 to 6 targets at once, and we split them up into paired walk lists. So if we have 50 people come out to the canvas, we have enough turf for everyone. But if we only have 25, then we send people out in about 12 target packets. And then we just assign the tasks to individual people. We upload all of our organizers as users to Action Builder with the designation of activist. And those folks have the permissions to pull up their task, to pull up the fields that we've uploaded through that CSV bulk upload, and to see the name of the tenant that they're going to be visiting, the questions that we need them to ask to make sure that they have all the resources they need to attend their eviction hearing. And then our organizers are able, just on their phones, they don't have to download an app or anything, as I'm sure you all know who use Action Builder frequently too, are just able to mark how the tenant responded, how they're going to attend their hearing, and if there's any needed follow-up that should be involved in the pre-hearing and post-hearing contacts that we do after that initial touch on the doors. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no,
okay.
And following along with you, and you know, I think as I kind of go through the features talking about the visualization, you stick around, and I have folks that are kind of part of the session, that they have some questions, you'll be able to field a few of those specifically to the work that you're doing, if folks are interested in replicating that. You know, because
we've just started doing that, really, that some of that more data visualization, to, especially since we're trying to identify multi-unit complexes now, so we can actually engage in longer term tenant relationships with those buildings where there are motivated tenants, where we can start working to build the foundations of tenants unions here in Cleveland. And we're using the data visualization from the turf that we've cut to identify like higher concentrations of evictions, and to identify, you know, hot shops or hot spots where we can really move into those apartment complexes where these evictions happen every single 2 weeks that we cut the turf. So we can start building power around that visualization as well. But we're just starting to break into those tools.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving us download on CHOP and the work that you're doing and using Action Builder, Abby. We're definitely going to pause and return back to this conversation. At this moment now, I'm going to move into kind of looking at the actual kind of steps of how you would do this visualizing in Action Builder using some make-believe data. Obviously, we can't share real data. This is being recorded and out there. Obviously, be really interesting to see what that back end looks like. But we can get the same kind of outcome using this data that we already have in the system in our demo. But first, I just want to give everyone, I know on today's session might have varying levels of knowing about Action Builder. So I'm going to go over the core pieces. Key to know that it's highly visual tool. It's really meant to give you a snapshot to know how your campaign is performing just by kind of looking or glancing at your phone in the various wall chart views that we have. So the wall chart is really modeled after the tried and true practice that organizers have used for decades of hanging up pieces of paper, putting the names of the people on there that they're organizing and using that as a way to organize and have a visual cue. We've taken that and digitized it, and we call it a wall chart. So when you log into Action Builder, that's the default place that you land, essentially within the campaign that you're working in. And this is the demo campaign, just an image here. We're looking at the wall chart. So it allows us to get a quick view of an individual in the campaign. And one thing to really know is that most of the time, folks are going to be on the go. So even in Abby's kind of overview of the work with CHOP, we think about people that are on the door. They have this pulled up on their smartphone and it looks good, highly visual with your ability to stay on that wall chart and look at the individual's information, their top line information, or that information that's pertinent at the kind of glance. So for example, their name, perhaps their court date. We can pull all that information into one screen. We can reach out to individuals from the screen as well, and you can view all this information without leaving the page. So that's our default view. So again, I talked a bit about what this is modeled after. On the left-hand side here, we see kind of the old school paper wall chart, looking at the shift and looking at using these color-coded dots to look at the assessments. So again, core to Action Builder is the ability to do assessments to track people's leadership development over time. You can include assessments as an upload. So I recently just did an upload or supported an upload on onboarding of an organization that already had assessments. And when you upload with the CSV file, so a comma separated file, you can actually include a column that has the assessments. You do not need to, but you can if you wanted to. So this is a visualization here as a one-to-one to our chart view on the right. We can see that the blue, again, and you can customize this, but let's just say the blue stood for our leaders, the green represented our supporters, and then the kind of yellow here represented folks that might have been on the fence, and then the red are the people that are against us. So our 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So where we might have used a piece of paper to chart that, in Action Builder, we can do that using the assessments, again, that are core to it, and then looking at our chart view, we can start breaking out and seeing those patterns that emerge within our campaign. So in this snapshot, we can see that in Minneapolis, which is a city in Minnesota, that we most of our folks that we're working right now are squarely in the 2 range. So we're doing pretty good in our leadership development here. Another view that we have on Action Builder for our wall chart is the map view. So we talked a bit about this. So the map view is really helpful in visualizing where people are. In addition to doing work sites, we can basically map out anything that has an address associated with it. That's with our update called entities. So with people, obviously they have a home address, but anywhere else that people might congregate, anywhere else where there might be an organization that you want to track and assess, you can map that on your map. So this could look like places on a university campus, the biology building, the student union. Again, Abby mentioned the multi-unit housing. We might want to look at that as well as an entity that we need to track. And these are also color-coded by assessment. The more that we zoom in, the more detail we get. So it's just like your map with Google Maps or Apple Maps. And we can combine filters on this map for more detailed mapping. And I'll do that in the live demo. So we've all talked about the three kind of views that we have on our wall chart. So we have our default view, we have our chart view, and then we have our map view. So going more in depth into the chart view, what does it do? This is probably the most visual view that we have as far as you being able to pull a strategy out on how your campaign is performing. You can group by various criteria like info or location, and we just recently announced that you can now group by connections. So connections is a feature in Action Builder where we can do robust power mapping. So looking at how, for example, a person within the campaign for CHOP is connected to a court date or connected to a certain housing apartment, a multi-unit housing rather. And we know that the bars are color coded by the actual assessment. So that's key to kind of remember. The assessments, again, in Action Builder are completely customizable. But for this instance, we know that our blues are our leaders, are our ones, our greens are showcasing our supporters, which we are looking at as twos. Yellow would be people that are on the fence. Red are people that are vehemently or anti what we're doing. And then gray in Action Builder is always going to be people who are unassessed. We can actually click on this little down arrow to expand this information and to see the percentages. Again, so this gives us a snapshot. And this is modeled after the paper wall chart with the little stickies. If you were to stand at the back of the room where the charts would be hung up on the wall, we'd be able to see these patterns starting to emerge on how our campaign is performing. And we'd be able to say people in the morning shift that work in the utilities department seem to be really on the fence with regard to our messaging. So perhaps we need to allocate more resources into that arena. We'll talk a bit about quick filtering, but this is another feature that is really nice. So I know I'll keep referring to Abby, but in Abby's example, or acting as an example, it's the everyday work of using Google Sheets and paper. We know that it is really difficult, if not impossible, to do the type of quick filtering we need to make good strategic decisions. We want to be able to return information that's going to be pertinent and helpful. In an Action Builder, we can use a quick filter in order to do that. The quick filter, you can use this on various pieces of the tool, whether that be your wall chart in the various views. And we can also quick filter using that in our activity stream, which I'll go over as well. But basically, you can search or build saved list within your campaign by applying specific criteria and returning individuals who match your result. The nice thing with this is that you can actually you can name and save these queries, and you can share these queries with other people on your team that you're working alongside. You will use the quick filter in order to actually be able to visualize the data in a more concrete way. If you don't use filters, obviously it's going to return all your records, all your information. And in order to make a more concrete kind of picture, if you will, you're going to want to use some quick filter to return, for example, all your twos and threes that have not signed a card, for example. Activity stream. This is a really cool feature in Action Builder. Again, that's very visual. If you use any type of social media, you kind of I know you understand the concept of an activity stream. In Action Builder, it kind of works in the same way, except we have the ability to use a filtering on this and return specific information to get an idea of all the activities that have happened over time, whether that be an assessment that's been changed on an individual in the campaign, or a series of assessments, whether it be notes that have been added to the system by your organizers. We can look at that all within the activity stream, which is extremely helpful, particularly if we need to report out specific information. So for example, how many people did we successfully speak to over the last 4 weekends? With the activity stream, we can pull all that information up into one screen and then be able to report out that information. Tasks, another kind of key visual piece of Action Builder. As Abby mentioned with the CHOP work example, the folks that are out walking the turfs, they have tasks assigned to them. There might be multiple people assigned to one task, but tasks allow you to be able to actually cut and see that turf that is assigned to an individual that they need to knock on doors, or maybe they're doing some kind of literature job task, and that ability to map out and cut that turf is extremely, I'd say, intuitive, and it's just kind of very efficient to use, and we'll demo that as well. All right, I think that might be my last slide. Yes, it is. So I'm actually going to jump over to this live version of Action Builder. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing pretty well. So I'm going to actually walk through some of the examples that I pulled up. So here we're in the live version of Action Builder. I'm in my demo site. I'm on the wall chart here. The campaign that I'm looking to organize on right now is called Demo Campaign. So I'll stay right within this screen. So if I wanted to do some filtering on this wall, for example, or I wanted to query, I'd be able to do that based upon my entity type. So right now, my default entity that I'm organizing is people. So everyone on the wall chart is people. But if I wanted to change that, I could easily do that here off to in this query box here on the right side and look at things like job sites, churches, maybe campuses, other organizations, maybe a different type of people with a different title. So my trained leaders, for example, all these entities I've added into the system as examples. Whatever is going to be pertinent for your program, you can add into Action Builder. But let's just stay with people for this example. So I actually want to build a list, and I think I'm going to go ahead and load a list here. So I think I have a load query here. Here's my build power example that I set up earlier. I'm going to pull that in. So this example, and I'll run the query. This example is all my 2s and 3s, and they're my people that live in the Great Lakes region. So I pulled in everyone that is a 2 or 3 that lives in Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Michigan. And I set that up as in advance. You can create your own queries by adding filters here and then hitting save. But I really wanted to pull this query in just so I can show you what it looks like on the visualization wall. So first I'm going to click over to the chart view. So across the top, you'll see we have our different views. We have our default, this kind of bulleted list here shows us our default wall chart view. The little line graph situation here is our chart. And then lastly, this map is pretty much self-explanatory, but that would be the map view. So clicking over to the chart view, by default, I'm going to see all my records from this, this list that I loaded. I'm going to call this my Great Lakes list. And then here I can see that obviously I'm not getting too much of a picture, but I can see that I have 47% of my folks are supporters of my green, and 53% are on the fence. So of these records that I have pulled up here. So let's do some grouping. I'm going to start breaking this out by field information. So again, in Action Network, our fields are basically just our questions that we have created in the system, and we have some responses built in. And these are responses that our organizers have followed up with these individuals and applied these responses to their individual profiles. So we're able to use this information to follow up with individuals, we can use this information to build lists, and most importantly, with kind of visualizing this information, we can use this to make informed decisions on our campaign. So I want to see everyone that, I want to see a breakout of what kinds of pets people like based upon that criteria. So quite a few of these people on this list, they don't have any, they don't have a response built in based upon what pet they enjoy. But I can see here that horse and cat is broken out as part of that data. So I'm gonna reset this and load a new query so that we can look at some additional information. So now you saw an example of how I broke this out on the field. Let's reset this filter. All right, and I'm gonna look at my ones that maybe are missing a piece of information. So they are missing an email address. So I'll run that query. Really small list. We can see that 4 people are missing that information. If I want to actually go in there and maybe add that information or see exactly who that is, I simply just click on this bar and I can pull up that information. I can click and expand that information right from this screen as well, which is a really nice feature, so I don't have to hop away from that and add that information in if I have it. Or I can just simply save this query and then actually share it with someone else on my team if I want to. Or I could say missing info, follow up, and then share this with someone else on my team, or share this with other folks on my team. So I'm gonna reset this query here and then go back to my default view for my wall chart and talk a little bit about the map view as well. So again, for my demo campaign, I have 760 people in here, a decent sized campaign. I've got various folks at various levels of assessments on here as well. If I wanna see my full kind of campaign broken out, and again, let's reset this and load a new query. Let's see people in New York. I'll load this query. Run the query. So I have 23 results of my 3s that are in New York. And maybe I want to see a different breakout, and that's going to show 0 of my people that are unassessed. See 1s, 2s, and 3s. I'll run that query, and I have 35 people. So I can see that 66 are majority percent of my people here when I do this breakout are on the fence. So let's break that out even more. Let's look at the location, and then I can also break this out by city. So these are now cities in New York State that I can look at and see some patterns start to emerge. I'm not working with a huge amount of people. It's only 35 people in this list, but I can see for New York City some breakouts and percentages. And you can see how this would kind of translate to like a large list. All right, so I'm gonna pop over here and reset this and continue to pull in some queries for this wall chart. And then we'll talk a little bit about task and we can look at how we can cut turf there. I'll be sure to pause for some questions here shortly so that we don't leave anything unexplained, I'll put it that way. All right, I wonder if there's another campaign I could hop into. I'll stay in this, this campaign. All right, so I'm gonna go back to this wall chart. And let's go to the map view. And for the map view, again, you're going to be looking at addresses. It's going to map addresses. It's also going to map in individual places that have the geolocation set, so latitude and longitude associated with them. So I'm going to not get an error message. Give me a pause question right there. I'm going to let the page reload. I see a few questions that have come to the chat. I promise I will get to those. Oh, actually, those are Jeff's links. So thank you for adding those links, Jeff. So I'm going to actually whittle this list down. So let's look at, based upon location, people that live in the city of Chicago. I'm going to run that query and return all of my people that are in Chicago. And then I'd be able to go to the map and map out those locations on this page. I've got a lot of applications running right now, so I would explain why I have some issues in pulling up some of this information, but I think we're in good shape now. That's no fun. All right, let's do this from the task view. So I'm gonna hop over to task and show you how we will cut turf. So in Action Builder, you have the ability to create tasks for organizers to be able to follow up with individuals, whether that be on the door, whether that be with phone calls, and we can do that. We can cut turf and assign those turfs to individuals. So I'm gonna walk through that now. I'm gonna do it from scratch. So I'm just gonna say, I wanna do a new turf. I'm gonna say, one-on-ones, and we'll say it's for August. August is starting very soon. We give it a due date. We'll make it due next week, and we're gonna apply it to people in our campaign. With the task, we can add a description. So this is where we probably add like a script for our one-on-ones if you use that. And then maybe just certain talking points that you want to have covered. Hit update, and again, this is all the information that's going to be given to your activist or your organizer when they log in. So I'm going to add some to-dos. I want them to provide an assessment. I want them to add a note on this interaction, and I want them to pull in specific information from our fields that we have in Action Builder. So I want them to respond if they're interested in, well, I want them to respond with issues they might be having. So then the next thing is to pick my targets. So these are the people that you want to include in this action. You can include everyone in your campaign, or you can query it down again. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the create query button so that I have a smaller kind of universe or targets for people to work with. I want my organizers to reach out to my 2s and 3s. And I want them to be people that are in New York State. I'll hit run query to return that, and I have a count of 26. I'll hit apply, and now those are my targets. We have two options next. We can do auto create turf, where Action Builder will automatically create the turfs and split them evenly based upon how many volunteers you might have or activists. But for this example, I'm going to just create the turf manually. So I'll go into my map view. I'll go into my query view. I have no count here. Let's reset that. There's 26. I'll hit apply. And just so that we can actually see the map view, I'm going to go back into the map, and those addresses should be pulled up. All right. Either I am being impatient, or I'm just kind of running into an issue with my JavaScript on my computer, which sometimes acts a little funky if I have Zoom running. I do apologize for that. All right, so I do have my targets pulled in here by using the query. The map is not coming up for me right now. And the way that I would assign it is, and again, you can assign it to multiple people, is to click on these 3 buttons here off to the right and click assign turf. And then I'm going to select the people that I want to work on this turf. So I can pick 2 people. If folks, again, are walking that together, you can do 1 person if you want to as well. I'm going to rename it something that makes sense. So I'm going to say Seth's August walk, and hit save. And now when I go back to my task, I'll see the task that's assigned to me here. So I can click on that and see my task. Sorry, I need to be in my assigned task. And I can see my one-on-ones here. I can see that it's doing 6 days. And then also, let's look at it, what it looks like on the phone, which is most helpful because this is the view that most organizers are going to have. And that's not a happy face to have. No, I keep getting that little error. And let me just go back in my task. So if I want to work through my task here, I'm going to start at my top of my list and work my way down. So if my first task is to change the assessment, I could do that by just clicking on this button. So let's say that Carrie moved from a 3 to a 2. It's going to knock that assessment off. My next thing is to add a note. I'm going to say we spoke for 15 minutes. And I'll hit save and add that information. And then my last piece is to add the issue. So of the responses, I'm going to say, COVID was an issue that was of note because of no time PTO. So I can add that note, and you can see here now that all my tasks are complete, and I can move on to the next target. And the great thing in working in Action Builder from this aspect is that it holds my spot. So if I want to go back, I can pick up my task anytime. It's different from if you were, for example, in a spreadsheet, you got interrupted, you wouldn't necessarily know where you left off. Here, Action Builder actually holds that spot for you. So I want to definitely get into the map view before we run out of time here. So I'm going to try that one more time. One thing also I want to talk about is the quick apply, which actually allows you to do some visualization as well. We talked a little bit about that and getting data into Action Builder. But if I wanted to do a quick apply where I add specific information that I want to query on, that is a good way to do that without having to upload or export information in Action Builder. So that looks like, let's say I wanted to change the information for everyone, again, that lives in a certain area. I might do that by zip code or state. So let's do all the people that live in Chicago again. So I'll run that query. And then for the people that live in Chicago, I want to do a quick apply of adding a specific piece of information. So I want to add if they signed the card. And I'm going to say yes. Hit next. I can toggle this on and off. I'm going to toggle it off because I'm going to say that these 4 people signed the card. Hit apply yes. And now that information has been applied. So you can see I can pull that information up and go into those individual profiles by clicking on the actual chart view. I can break out that information. So again, if I want to break that out by field, with that information that I just added, say signed card. And now I can see that I have the 4 for yes and the 2 that still have not added that information on. All right, so I'm gonna reset that, and it looks like we got 10 minutes left here. I did want to reopen that back up and that conversation with Carrie. Yeah, Abby, yeah, we did 15 minutes, and it really was evident that if folks have questions, and my question basically now in wrapping up with Abby, essentially is just how do you see Action Builder helping out moving forward, whether that be with CHOP or DSA, and helping you to make decisions on how your campaigns are run?
Yeah, thank you, Seth. I had a quick question too, sort of in the weeds question. Can you do quick apply from task view? Like, could our canvassers quick apply, like if they left flyers at all 6 doors, could they quick apply in task view as well?
From the task view to do a quick apply, no, actually that's only done from the actual
from the wall chart.
Yeah. But
that's still helpful to know about though, because if folks get back and hadn't entered their data yet and all 6 were left flyer at the doors, we could just add that for them in quick apply.
Most definitely.
Cool.
And that's a newer feature and it's coming really handy. I saw a hand up from, I think, Carlos. If you could drop that question into the chat, we can definitely answer that.
In the meantime, I'll answer your question real quick, Seth. I kind of spoke to it before, but moving forward, we're trying to really identify hot shops in the city where there are landlords who are regularly evicting their tenants and who are relying on eviction as a way to generate profits, turn over tenants quicker, take advantage of things like voucher programs from cities to try to continue to extract a lot of profit from low-income folks whose rental payments are being subsidized. Mm-hmm. And so we really want to identify those apartment complexes and push back against those landlords. And we're doing that all through data visualization in Maps in Action Builder. And we're just starting to really get into that. And also trying to identify tenants who had really good conversations with our organizers so that we can circle back with those folks and see if we can get them more involved in DSA and the Democratic Socialists of America more broadly, and in the Housing Organizing Project as organizers themselves, rather than just as folks that we talk to through eviction canvassing. So that's really where we're going moving forward with Action Builder. Something else I wanted to say about that question is that we're really trying to onboard new activists into being able to utilize Action Builder, not only from the interfaces as a user, like just marking off their doors, but really as organizers themselves, being able to use this tool more intuitively, like running their own queries, knowing how the queries work, how to save queries, and really how to make sure that we're democratizing the utilization of this tool so that it's not just like a small group of us who know it really well, who can do these kinds of queries and who can help to visualize this data to organize each other as well as other tenants who are not DSA members already.
Oh, that makes sense. And yeah, I think that would be a good way of raising the awareness in just kind of democratizing the data, particularly when you can see it and people have vision, if you will, to that information in a really kind of digestible way. It does help people feel like they're on the same page and involved and engaged. So no, thanks for sharing that. And I think if there's any more questions, folks, feel free to add those to the chat so that either Abby or myself can answer that. I know, Carlos, you had your hand raised earlier. If you still have a question that you want to ask, you can put that in the chat so that we can get to it. No open questions. I'm going to assume hopefully that folks got the information out of the session that was helpful to them. We do have some session links coming up at 3. I know that Jeff put those in the chat, so just have those available to hop over to those next sessions when they start running here at 3 o'clock in the next 5 minutes. And I see Abby has just dropped a link about knocking on doors tomorrow at 1. If you're in Ohio, definitely come down and say, come over and say hi. And just shared if you're interested in a getting something started step by step with some videos. Use Action Builder and CHOP so that you can do something similar. You can contact Abby at info@dsacleveland.org. Fantastic. That's an organizer right there, sharing that information out. If you have questions, I also drop my email in the chat here. You can reach me directly at seth@actionnetwork.org. If you have questions about Action Builder or your Action Builder user, you can always reach someone at support@actionbuilder.org as well. If that is it and there are no questions, feel free to take a break before you hop into that next section, the next session. Thank you so much for joining the Build Power and joining the session on visualizing your work in Action Builder. I do hope it was helpful, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you all. That was so helpful.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the work that you're doing with CHOP and DSA in Cleveland. Glad that you were able to join us.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.